Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our daily word. It's Monday morning. It is the first day of November. We've transitioned to a new month, and it's gorgeous out. Beautiful sunny Monday morning. So glad you could join me for our few minutes together as we share in our continued daily word. So we had a great day yesterday with worship and lunch afterwards and trunk or treat. We had a lot of folks come to trunk or treat. I grilled a ton of hot dogs and made lots and lots and lots of popcorn. And we had many cars who passed out candy for trunk or treat. And we gave away pumpkins and apples and all kinds of really hot chocolate, hot apple cider. It was a great day. So if you joined us, I hope you had a great time. And we just enjoy reaching out to our neighborhood. And they certainly expect us to be here and to share in that day. So it was a nice day, a little windy, but it was a nice day. So it was wonderful, and it's good to be in relationship with our neighborhood and have them always come and see us. So this morning's scripture, I've just chosen one verse, so we're going to talk about a little deeper than this. So this one verse set in the context of a big story. It's after the resurrection. Jesus appears to the disciples on the beach, and they have this miraculous catch of fish, so much so that they can't get it out of the boat. And Peter goes and gets it and drags it to the shore, and Jesus invites them to come have breakfast. And in that, of course, they recognize who Jesus is. Of course, in the breaking of the bread, they recognized who he was. And so after this one verse happens in the midst of this story. We know Peter, who has said earlier that he would never deny Jesus. And then Peter, in the midst of the crucifixion, 3 times denies that he knows Jesus, that he's part of the followers of Jesus, that he's part of this band of folks who've been with Jesus. He denies him. And so we hear this story. The Bible headline is Jesus reinstates Peter. And it's just this one verse that's an interesting question that Jesus asks Peter. Do you love me more than these? It's an interesting question. I imagine, Jesus and Peter maybe leaving everybody else and going for a walk along the beach. And I imagine them stopping at some point along their walk along the beach. And Jesus wants to reinstate Peter, wants to bring him back into the fold. I can imagine, part of me thinks about the reason that Peter jumped over to the side of the boat to drag in this large catch of fish. I think the number is 700 and some fish, if I remember right. He jumps over the side of the boat. Large number of fish, 153, this Bible says. And I imagine Peter doing that, to show that he's still part of the team, because I imagine the guilt he must have felt for doing this whole denial thing around the fire. And so I can imagine Peter and Jesus being on the walk just by themselves, and Jesus needing to reinstate Peter, Jesus needing to have this conversation with him. And so he says to Peter as they stop, the scripture says, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? It's an interesting question. I wonder, the point of the question, do you love me more than these? More than the friends who they've walked away from? More than the boats and the nets? What was Jesus referring to? The friends around the fire who are getting ready to eat breakfast? Simon Peter, do you love me more than these? Peter says, yes, I do. He asks him again, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Simon, son of John, do you love me? A third time. But that original question, do you love me more than these is an interesting question. What about for us in our walk, in our relationship, in our call, if we're going to walk with and be a follower and be a disciple? Do you love me more than these? Now, the these on the beach were maybe the friends, maybe the boats and the nets, maybe it was something else. Maybe it was that big catch of fish that would bring in lots of dollars. But what about us? Do you love me more than these? More than the cars and the restaurants and our clothes and our houses? It's an interesting question. I think that it probably behooves us to think about and to answer. Because Jesus really wanted Peter to clarify his values. Jesus knew, even beforehand, he knew of Peter's denials that were going to happen. And he had this interesting relationship with Peter. You know, Peter, James, and John. Peter who got to go to the mountaintop, experience transfiguration. Peter who walked on water. Peter now, who climbs out of the boat and drags the catch of fish to the shore. Peter who denied. You know, Peter who said at the Last Supper, look, Lord, if you're going to wash my feet, wash my head and my hands too. And Peter had this idea, these interesting ideas, and he got to experience all of these things. And maybe it's all of that Jesus points to. Do you love me more than these? Those experiences, those things. Do you love me more than these? And it's an interesting question. He needs Peter to clarify his values. And Peter says, of course, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And he reminds Peter, of how he's going to die. He tells him in these later verses. And then he says to Peter, follow me. It's simple. Hard, but simple. Thinking about this, if we were to be asked that question, do you love me more than these? What would the these be? Would it be all of our stuff? Would it be my cup of coffee that's on my desk? Cars and wealth and the big catch of fish? What would our answer be and what would it be for us to clarify our values if we're really going to follow? Will we be willing to put aside, our political attacks on whoever we dislike as a politician? Will we be able to put it aside? Do we love God more than we love the political attacks on the current president, on whoever it is that we dislike? Do we love Jesus more than ourselves and we seek to love our neighbors? How do we clarify our values? Because the answers are important, and they were important to Peter as he answered them. And then Jesus, of course, at the end of this, which I think is just really an amazing thing, he reinstates him. He gives him back his status, if you will, as a disciple. He tells him, look, here's how you're going to die, But then he says, before all of that, follow me. And I think that's where we are called to, if we're going to clarify our values. When we walk with Jesus, we're going to be challenged in that same kind of way to clarify our values and to wonder where we fit in this call to be disciples. And so I think it's important for us to listen, to know where we fit, and then to follow with all that we have. It's a challenge for us to do. Yesterday, I went to the hospital to visit a friend who was in a very, very serious car accident on Friday night. He's actually lucky to be alive. The other person died. We had a long talk, and we talked about lots of things, but I got ready to leave, and I was walking out, and as I walked by the nurse's station, there was a gold pumpkin that had fallen off. It looked like falling off somebody's necklace or maybe their lapel, so I bent down to pick it up, and I turned around to the nurse's station, and I held it out, and I recognized the nurse who took care of me when I had my knee replaced on August 16th. So they took the thing, and I said, "Corinne, you know me." And she looked up at me and paused for a second, and she pointed at me, and she said, "Pastor." And I said, "Yeah." And she shook my hand, and then she said, "I'm going to give you a hug." So she came around and gave me a hug, and we talked for a bit. And she was really excited to see me. I remember when I left that next day, she was having lots of issues with her health and the career and all of that stuff. And I promised her, and I have been, she's on my list, that I would be praying for her. And she gave me a big hug, and we talked for a bit. And I got to thinking about that and the fact that she recognized me so clearly, even with my mask on. Do you love me more than these? Do you love me enough to make an impact on somebody's life that just didn't happen on August 16th and 17th, but all the way to October 31st that she carried with her? I think that's what God calls us to. I think that's the impact we're supposed to have on each other's lives. And so, do you love me more than these? Do you love me more than all the other stuff? All the social media stuff, all the attacks, all the bipartisan stuff. Do you love me more than all of that and really follow me? You know, all the people who came yesterday, who got all those hot dogs and candy and apples and popcorn. Oh, they were so, so, so grateful. Do you love me more than these, that we could give of our time to make a difference? I think Jesus calls us always to clarify our values in all of that. So, hope that's a word that we can look deep inside of ourselves and ask the question as we seek to follow Jesus and be disciples. So, know of God's love that surrounds you. Enjoy the beauty of this first day of November. I know my love for all of you, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.